We're live on the radio in 5, 4, 3.
And we are back, folks, here on the Michigan Insider on the Big 1050 WTKA, online at the big1050.com. You know what we do? The 9 o'clock hour every Thursday is reserved for my guys from MGoBlog. They come on every Thursday to break things down in the world of Michigan football and basketball, but it is football season. And hockey, by the way. But right now, we are coming off a loss to the Oklahoma Sooners, where in the fourth quarter, it was a game where the Wolverines had been outplayed into the fourth quarter. It was a one-score game to start that fourth quarter, but the Sooners were able to put it away. So it is reflection time. It is takeaway time. What can be taken away and applied moving forward in a meaningful way? Joining me to discuss, to break down, the man who started it all over at MGoBlog, Brian Cook. Brian, good morning. How are you?
I am well.
And then we have the venerable Craig Ross. How are you?
Hey, usually Seth goes first. I'm doing okay. But I have a question.
Okay, so wait. So it sounds like you're about to go off into a.
This is why I go first.
All right, so then I'll come back around to you, and let me go to Seth first. Seth, how are you this morning?
Hi, Sam. Go ahead, Craig.
Well, no, it's short. I don't know if you guys know where the word "sooner" comes from. And
I don't know, you know what? My wife asked me that. I said, I don't know. So please break it down.
Rather than later?
Yeah. Kind of. In 1889, the United States government stole some land from the Indians or Native Americans that they had previously given to Native Americans because they thought no one wanted it in Oklahoma. And they decided, now we're going to give this land to Europeans, but we don't know how to do it. So we're going to put like 12,000 stakes out there in the ground. And each stake will represent about 150 acres thereabouts of land. And we're going to do it by just having a shotgun go off, and there'll be a blast of a shotgun, and all these people out in horses and schooner wagons or whatever can go after and try and get one of these stakes. And those people were known as boomers. So they lined up and the shotgun went out, they ran, they got a stake, and they got some land. I don't think there was any cost at all involved other than, the actual process of doing it. Well, it turns out a lot of people cheated. And they went out before the shotgun went off, even days, and hid out on the property and then grabbed the stakes up and then took them over to the office. Those people were called Sooners because they went out before they were supposed to go out. Now, the Sooners then became revered. They gamed the system. They gamed the system, got the stakes in front of everybody else, and became revered. And the Oklahoma became the Sooners because those were the guys who were smart by cheating and gaming the system. Anyway, this is the truth. This isn't nonsense. I mean, it may be nonsense, but it is.
So
that's where Sooners come from.
Wait, so we get into the breakdown.
Yeah.
Stole the land from the Indians.
Yeah.
And then gave it to people who cheated to get it.
You got it.
And then you named the team
Right.
out. You named it.
Right. Right.
Okay.
That's the story.
Okay. All right. Let's get into this 24-13 loss to the Oklahoma, steal the land from the Indians, give it to the people who cheat to get it, Sooners. Brian Cook, your broad brush takeaway from this defeat. I mean, what did you see? What was the thing that sticks out to you the most?
I mean, the thing that sticks out to me the most is you run the ball on 3rd and 6 down 2 touchdowns in the third quarter. You get 4 yards, and then you kick a field goal on 4th and 2. Like, it really didn't feel like they were trying to win this game. Like, there's there are decisions that you can make that are kind of 50-50 decisions, and repeatedly in this game, Michigan made very conservative decisions that, might have resulted in a field goal, might have resulted in some points, but just were not really calculated to go win the game. And I know that they were down 8 in the fourth quarter, but to be down 8 in the fourth quarter, they had to get a lot of gifts from Oklahoma, particularly on special teams. And the overall vibe I got was kind of similar to what we saw with Devin Gardner in the Hoke era, is that we'd come up against teams that just kind of knew that Michigan was going to be conservative, and they would maniacally send guys across the line of scrimmage, and Michigan never really had a response for it. And that was a similar vibe to this game, where you've got 7 guys on the line of scrimmage, and you've got opposition defensive backs playing 10 yards off, and Michigan won't take the free real estate. And this is probably going to be a blip. It's Bryce Underwood's first road game. It's against Oklahoma. Oklahoma's a very good, very veteran defense, and you have to have a lot of confidence in your defense to play the way Oklahoma did. So I feel like this is not going to be something that we're going to see against like a Nebraska or a Northwestern, or just it takes a certain level of opposition to be able to perform the way that Oklahoma did. But I was disappointed with the overall predictability of what Michigan was doing. Like, Oklahoma had all those screens downloaded. They had absolutely no fear of Michigan like trying to go behind them when they got very, very aggressive about those screens. And there were a couple of counter punches that Lindsey did have that didn't come off. Samaj Morgan dropped a tunnel screen that looked like it would have been a decent gain. Like, I don't know if that's getting the first down, but just overall, it felt like a game where they didn't trust their quarterback, and they weren't. And when you don't trust your quarterback, and the opposition is going to be like, we know you don't trust your quarterback, they are going to be aggressive to the point where I'm not sure that the blocking in this game can be fairly evaluated unless you really dive into it like I did. And there were some mistakes, like, Sprague didn't hinge block on a particular run, and like IDing who you were supposed to get was kind of an issue, but they weren't physically overwhelmed. What happened is that you got safeties coming in the box. It felt a lot like a D'Antonio, like, quarters defense, where just there's always a safety who just doesn't care about anything except your run game. And it felt a lot like those sort of disjointed offenses from several years back, where it's just like, we don't have a coherent plan to deal with aggression. And I don't think this is going to be like the story of the year. I do feel like Brent Venables came in this game and he was like, okay, all the stuff that people do to make young quarterbacks comfortable, we're just going to delete them. And Michigan didn't really have a response.
Seth.
Yeah, Brian pretty much covered the offense, and I had a lot of the same takes there. Defensively, listen, if Rashawn Benny has a bad game, okay, a little worried. If Rashawn Benny and Derek Moore have bad games, okay, two guys had bad games. If all of those guys plus TJ Guy plus Jayshon Barham a little bit, Barham was really up and really down, but when everyone is performing worse than their norm, then I kind of want to just think, like, let's throw this one out, right? I think maybe they're watching the same offense we were, and it's hard to, maybe it's just hard to get up. But this was so far below the level that I've seen these guys play at. Derek Moore is so much better than this. Rashawn Benny, he's never had a score this low. TJ Guy is like, he was keeping up with Josiah Stewart last year, and he was just a guy. He couldn't pass rush. He was, just his kick out attempt. Like, when he got kicked out, he just kind of accepted it a few times or reached out with one arm instead of fighting through. It just wasn't them. And it's not the defense that I've been charting for years. And they weren't doing some things that I thought they used to do very, very well. Now, part of that was they lost Zeke Berry, and they had a freshman cornerback. So I went back. I'm like, why are they not making their checks? Because they used to be awesome. Teams love to go unbalanced against Michigan, right, where they cover a wide receiver and try to and keep that side open for their quarterback. And that was a very predictable thing that Oklahoma would want to do, right? They got a dual threat quarterback. They're going to want to run that. Michigan ran it fine 2 times. They lost Zeke Berry, and then all of a sudden Oklahoma was hitting them with this, and Michigan didn't want to make the check that they normally make. I don't know if you ever watch people like, put their arms up, right? Like they show their biceps, right? I think they didn't want to do that because that turns your cornerback into a safety and puts a lot on that guy. And it was Jaden Sanders, a true freshman who wasn't really expecting to play this year. So I think the injuries piled up. The offense wasn't doing anything, and I think the defense just weren't fitting their gaps. And it's just this is very fixable stuff. This is not like they were making senior mistakes or they're getting bullied around. They were just making mistakes that they stopped making when they were sophomores. And that's when I see that and I see it happening to everybody, it's just not our day.
Right. It's interesting to me because I trust Brian and Seth's work in evaluating what's going on in the field. But you look at PFF, you look at other commentators, and they're all over the board on this game. PFF loved what TJ Guy did, rated him very, very highly. They rated him our second highest rated guy in this game was TJ Guy. Or third, I guess. Derek Moore, they rated very highly. It doesn't make sense to me that, and it may be that PFF is just off.
I don't know what the coaches think. I bet you the coaches agree with me more than PFF.
It wouldn't surprise me, and this morning, I think, or from last night's interview, I think Vance wasn't happy with Zeke Berry at all. It sounds like
he got beat by a double move.
There were a couple that that he was disappointed in. So I don't know. From my point of view, in terms of what I mean, I'm still not sold on the offensive line. I think a lot of what looks like coaching might just be raggedy offensive line play, and maybe it is that Underwood had a poor game, and certainly PFF agrees with that one. But I'm not sure that the offensive and the line was very good. The thing that's concerning is perhaps in the big picture is that the defense was going against an offensive line that no one thought was particularly good or experienced. I mean, the left tackle was a 5-star, true freshman, a 5-star. He's probably
in his
good.
First game because he didn't play in the first game.
Right. So, and the rest of the offensive line wasn't considered any kind of juggernaut, and yet they still played better than our offensive front.
Well, so I think there's a little bit of a distinction you need to make here, is that John Mateer ran the ball 19 times in this game.
Yeah, crazy.
Right, like they were putting it all on the line for this game, and Michigan ran Bryce Underwood 1 time, right? So when you have an 11-on-11 run game and Mateer had as many carries as the rest of the Oklahoma Sooners combined, that puts a stress on your defense. And he got 3.9 yards carry. The opposition running backs did absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
So I kind of feel like in the overall scheme of things, I thought the run defense did well for itself. And you had Mateer, he escaped a sack and got down the sideline and hit a guy, and he made plays, right? And there's things you can say about the defense, but I do think that they were put in a bind by a very, very dual threat quarterback. And you can argue about whether that's wise for Oklahoma in the long term to have John Mateer run it 20 times in a game. Michigan has a very different philosophy, but what I think you can say is that their philosophy about running the ball with their quarterback helped them a lot in this game, and Michigan just wasn't going to do that. So for me, the defensive performance was reasonable because it's hard. It is very hard to defend a genuine dual threat quarterback, a guy who can throw and run. And Mateer is that guy. And, he's wild a little bit. He threw that interception. That was a total gift. He missed a couple other passes, but he's a talent. And, you are going to get got by a guy like Mateer, and give up 24 points seems okay to me,
Yeah, man. Went through and we broke down Mateer, power read, counter, G lead, split zone, zone read, duo kick, draw, They were running it all with him. Now, I agree with you, Brian. In the long run, if they do that continuously, he won't last the season. It just you can't do that. But
I mean, the dude rushed for 1,000 yards last year. Like, you know,
in that conference, you do that in the SEC, he will not last the season.
Context matters. First of all, they got a new offensive coordinator, and this was his biggest test of the year. This was like this defense was the team that he had to beat, and everyone was like, "Ben Arbuckle, are you for real?" So he had this game plan. He had us. He knew Wink's calls. He knew everything. He knew how to like go in motion, get a look, and then come back and do it again. This was very well game planned by Oklahoma.
If he does this, if he continues to do this in this schedule, and this is like your plan as you get into other big games that go through this dude is going to get slaughtered. But for this game, because I'm agreeing with you largely, saying as this has been my point all week, you have got to be able to mitigate or mask your deficiencies better, much better, far better than Michigan did in this game. You got to take a page out of their book because you had two things going on Michigan's offense. Number one, their line is never going to be 21 or 22 this year, or even 23. Now, that's not saying that they aren't going to be better than they are now. I absolutely think by middle of the season, I think they could be a really solid line. If you can get Gio back, I think they could be really solid. But they aren't going to be, they aren't going to be a dominant line where, like you said, they can block all 11. I don't think that's them. But could they be a line that if you inject the quarterback in the running game in a judicious way? Could they be effective? I think absolutely. But you also have the issue with your quarterback. And this showed up early before Oklahoma started, being really aggressive with him. He wasn't really always seeing it. I mean, you were kind of seeing the freshman part of it. And this was some of what Denard was pointing out. Like, they showed on TV where he thought he had man-to-man and it was cover 3.
Yeah.
And then there's the completion down the side. This was maybe one of the more glaring ones where he leaves the clean pocket and he goes down the sideline to Donovan McCulley. And it winds up being, it was a third down conversion. It winds up being like a 25-yard play, maybe. So it's a good play, right? You're like, great. But you watch the all 22 and the alert on the play right now is wide open. You got Samaj screaming down the middle of the field with a linebacker running behind him, and it's a touchdown, like right down the middle of the field, and he doesn't look at it. And so if you're like the coordinator, you're kind of looking at like very early in the game, and they're like, man, like he's not seeing some things, and then they start heating him up. Now he's feeling pressure on top of not seeing some things. So how do you, as a coordinator, how do you kind of slow things down for him? I mean, to me, that's where I've never called plays.
He's a freshman quarterback, though. Like, this is what you're living with, right? And the idea that you're gonna throw screens against Oklahoma, they threw 5 screens in this game for -5 yards, and at no point did Michigan like try to go behind that. They did try the tunnel to Samaj dropped, and there were a couple blips in there, but it just felt like there were moments when it's just like, okay, you got free real estate on the outside. Like, you have a guy playing 10 yards off your outside receiver, and Bryce Underwood has a cannon for an arm. You're getting 7 yards on that. And they just never ran that alert. It was actually kind of funny. There's a guy who does a lot of film breakdown who did both Mateer and Underwood before this game. And one thing he said about Arbuckle is that, like, if you give him that, he's just going to take it.
And he did.
At some point, I was like, just take it. Like, they've got 7 guys in the box. They're playing an Okie 0 front. Just throw the ball and see what your wide receiver can do. And this is a complaint I had like back in the Hoke days, where it's just like, at some point, you cannot allow the opposition to play 10 yards off your receivers and blitz you with 7 guys. You just can't do that. You have to make them bring their corners up, because then that makes those safeties go back. And they just never use that relief. And I'm just like, you're making it hard for yourself. Because I know that you're not going to like make an offense out of that. That's not how you make an offense. But what you can do is you can restrict what the opponent is trying to do. And I just never really saw that for Michigan. Now, there were a couple good moments, right? Like the 75-yard touchdown right out of the third quarter. I know they saw that because they came out in a jumbo formation, and Oklahoma had a huge bubble. Like they had absolutely no one between their defensive end and the Sam linebacker, and there were like 3 offensive linemen. There was like 3 gaps in there.
Mhm.
And so coming out of there and being like, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to run power, but it's going to be design cutback and bam. Like they have the ability to do some of these things. I just am concerned that Sherrod Moore's natural inclination is so conservative that it's leaving expectation on the table. Now, freshman quarterback, a lot of coaches do this. A lot of coaches act like this when they don't fully trust their quarterback. We've seen it at Michigan plenty, going back 20 years. This is a very common thing. So I'm hoping that, once they get a little bit more confident in what Bryce is seeing, that they're not going to coach like this anymore. And, we saw that in the opener. Like they got 3rd and 14 against New Mexico, and they're like, okay, let it rip, kid. And there were some blips in this game where it's just like, yeah, he didn't see that. He didn't see that. He didn't see that. At some point, I don't care because you're not going to win the game running Justice Haynes for 2 yards and throwing screens. So what, like, you're probably not going to win the game with having Bryce Underwood read Oklahoma's defense, but I'd rather lose the game doing that because at least that is productive for Bryce Underwood. I don't think handing off against Oklahoma is doing a damn thing for him.
Well, so my thing is if you're seeing that early in the game though, which they obviously did, how are you relieving the pressure if not handing it off to your running backs, and that's not working. You weren't able to sustain.
Relieving the pressure is about hitting them where they ain't, So if
I
they
agree.
are so aggressive that they're hitting Justice Haynes 5 yards in the backfield on a flare screen, you got to have something.
You do.
Takes advantage of that. But they
got a couple things. You got a couple different things. You can pump and go that like they tried to with what's his name, Marsh in the first game when he didn't turn around, right? You could that's got to be something that you can draw up in the next game. I don't know why they didn't pull it forth in this game. That's something Denar brought up. He said I kept expecting them to pump and go that, and they didn't. So we'll see that. But I think they got to be more aggressive with Bryson one way or the other. Me personally, not a non-play caller here. I think you got to run him. I think you got to inject him in the run game. Is my point. Not to the degree that they did Mateer.
So the one time they did run him in this game, they motioned away from the field. The cornerback converted into a blitzer, and the strong side linebacker, maybe, I don't know, might be weak side at that point, but the linebacker to that side tipped on the motion, and both those guys were sprinting at the line of scrimmage on the snap. Right? They were sprinting at the line of scrimmage on the snap, and you can't block that. Like, I know you go into the PFF and it's like, this blocking is bad. This blocking is bad. This blocking is bad. It's not on the blocking when you have guys sprinting at the line of scrimmage on the snap. That's the same thing that happened to Bredesen on that flare screen, where it's just like, he got a big ding for that in PFF, I'm sure, but nobody's making that block. And I know that nobody's making that block because Max Bredesen didn't make that block, so nobody's making that block, right? So, I mean, to me, Brent Venables went into this game and he's like, I know what they're going to do because I've seen this before. I've played a billion freshman quarterbacks, and this is what people do, and we're just not going to let them do it. And they didn't. And like, I was disappointed in Michigan's failure to anticipate what Brent Venables might do. And I was disappointed with Michigan's failure to respond to what Brent Venables was doing. Because like, he just had it locked in, and Michigan never really gave Bryce Underwood something easy that actually gained yards. And there are opportunities for that they just passed on. And at that point, you're just hoping that people learn the lesson.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, this is Sherrod Moore's second year. This is his, there's a lot of growing pains that come with being a head coach. And I think that, whenever you elevate a new guy, there's going to be growing pains. And I think he's going to learn from this. And I think that, he's going to understand that you can't just come into a game like this and do exactly what the playbook says you should do for a young quarterback. You can do it against New Mexico. Like New Mexico, bubble screen first play, 8-9 yards, because New Mexico doesn't have the confidence and the athletes to just line up on the line of scrimmage and say, like, we dare you. And Oklahoma dared Michigan, and Michigan mostly declined to like take them up on their dare.
Yeah.
My hope is that Sharon now has 2 weeks off to sit and watch football games, and I hope he'll see enough. Because if you watch a lot of college football, everyone's learned these lessons, right? It's not like you needed to have it happen to you to learn it. And sometimes you just need to watch other games and see, like, oh yeah, man, everyone's got this guy. You get a feel for a game. Everyone's got this guy. It was very concerning because these are mistakes that we've made. We made it with Chad Henne, and we lost to Notre Dame in 2004. We made it with Jim Harbaugh and lost to Washington in 1983. This has happened every single time Michigan's got their hot new quarterback. You can go back through the ages. I'm sure Craig Ross can name something from 1300 when somebody got the wrong guy in, right? Or just somebody was trying to protect their young guy. And you know what? Venables is a smart guy, and this is a big game for them. I was trying to make this point earlier. If you look at their schedule, they got the hardest schedule in the country, but it all happens next October. Michigan's the only thing in September. And then, they got Auburn, and then they got nothing. And then they got the worst gauntlet you've ever seen in college football history starting in like mid-October. So, yeah, this is the game. And they had us down. And Michigan did not have that commitment to beat Oklahoma that Oklahoma had to beat Michigan.
So listen, I think the conservatism is coming from a different place. They obviously
you don't think it's coming from Sharon?
No. So it's not. I don't think the play calling conservatism is about is a style thing right now. Hey, I just want to, or a stubbornness thing that hey, I just want to run it down their throats because I don't want to throw it.
Nobody's saying that.
Oh,
Nobody's saying that. We're saying that they didn't want to expose their quarterback to Evan Link and Greg Crippen.
Okay, so here's what I'm getting at.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the experience in 23, and this is speculation on my part because I haven't had this discussion, but I'm putting some things together. When we hear Jerome say, "Hey, if you're gonna run your quarterback, you better have two," I think he's referencing the Penn State experience, which has some parallels here in that you're in that game and that defensive line, you can't block them and they're killing you, right? And a big component in that game was running your quarterback. They had some +1 runs. They, quarterback pin and pull, quarterback power. They got JJ on the edge. They were running some games inside. They were bringing pressure off the edge. They were able to get outside of it, right? That was a big part of that game. But another big part of that game was JJ got hurt. And he was almost knocked out for the season. And I think that is a component here. I think that is something that is sort of playing with his mind in this, hey, I don't really believe that I got a guy who could play anywhere close to what Bryce can play. I'm not going to compromise my quarterback situation like that. But again, my reply would be, if you don't do it, you probably lose anyway, in my opinion. So I'm gonna run them judiciously. I'm gonna have 5 to 8 runs in the game plan, and I'm gonna live with the risk. I'm gonna accept that risk because I think the reward is that great, and I think he's big enough, he's durable enough. I'm gonna coach him to get down. I'm gonna get some things going to the sideline, and I think it's gonna augment my run game enough and help out my line enough to where it's going to be fine. It's going to inject enough success where my offense is going to be better for it.
Well, the thing that, you got to think about is the risk profile of 2023 team versus the risk profile of this team. So the 2023 team was the best team in America, had the best defense in America, had a crushing offensive line, had Blake Corum, had Donovan Edwards. You just need to get your quarterback to the finish line that season, right? That's it. You just need him to get to the finish line. That isn't this team. You know, the defense isn't as good. You know, the offensive line isn't as good. If you want to win games, you're going to have to rely on your quarterback in multiple ways. And the easiest thing for a young quarterback to do is run the ball. And yeah, there's a chance that he's going to get hurt. But there's a chance that he's going to get hurt sitting back in the pocket, getting blindsided. Like, we have studies about this, is that running quarterbacks don't generally get hurt more often than pocket quarterbacks. Because the worst thing you can do as a quarterback is get hit in the pocket. Because you are not an active runner, you are defenseless, and you get blown up like that. So for me, you got to change your decision making based on the shape of the team that you have. I'm not really seeing that right now.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more on this, Brian, that that needs to be a part of this team's game. But it makes me wonder, because what you're saying seems so axiomatic. It makes me think maybe Bryce can't run. Maybe he can't make reads. I mean, why else is this going on? It can't
Belleville's entire offense last year was his legs.
Yeah,
That's what they did.
Well, I know, but is it just fear of injury?
Worried about that, you wouldn't. Then you could just run all +1 runs. Then, if you felt that way, then just give me a quarterback power. Give me a pin and pull. Give me a quarterback sweep. Give me every all +1 runs, and then we aren't worried about the read at that point. If that was
but we're not doing that either, right?
No, I understand.
I mean,
but he can. You don't have to worry about that. He can read. He's fine.
Listen. If you guys watch Monday Night Football, at the end of that game, Vikings just put all of their chips in the J.J. McCarthy pile, and I applaud them for that, because I think that's really going to work out and destroy my Lions' chances of winning the NFC North for a few years. But at the end of that game, how'd they win it? They ran a zone read
auction. Yeah.
They ran a zone read, and he runs it in. And now if he gets hurt, that's your season, Vikings, right? They got 16 games left on the schedule, and they knew, right? And that's somebody who's in the circle, right? That's somebody that you can call the coordinator of the Minnesota Vikings and talk to him. It's one of our friends, right? Ask him. Go. Sharon's got 2 weeks off. Go and find out what you're doing wrong. Everyone watched that game. Everyone saw what you guys did. Go ask your friends. Don't ask us. Don't ask stupid bloggers on a radio show. Go ask your friends what you should be doing.
I think this is something, like you said initially, it merely about risk tolerance, and they just got a decision to make as far as that's concerned, and hopefully they figure it out in a way that can really help to see that. Again, I want to qualify this, because I honestly have not had that discussion. This is just my observation, because I was convinced that was going to be a part of the game plan, and we didn't see it. I was like, I don't think they can line up straight up and against the defensive line like that, as we saw in this game. If they see anything close to that, they ain't going to be able to line up straight up and block them.
I mean, I didn't really expect they're going to run the quarterback. They didn't run Alex Orji last year, right? They didn't have a zone read game for Alex Orji.
Yeah.
Different OC.
No. But like, the head coach is the head coach, right? And that is a head coach decision. How much you're running the quarterback is a head coach decision.
Well, I think last year they didn't run Alex Orji because your OC didn't know how to.
I mean, what?
Yes.
It is a little hard to believe, Sam. I mean, it's not like there's no team in the country that any team in the country that can't run a read option at this point. Or
I mean, I just, it's a philosophy that Sharon Moore has, and maybe it'll keep his quarterback healthy and maybe it won't. But I do think it's hurting the expectation for the offense because you have a guy who can do it and you're not asking him to do it. And he's also a very young quarterback who can't read a smash route right now. So, it's a little bit of a pickle, I guess I would say.
So, one of the things about that 23 season is they had the best defense in the country. I thought this defense was going to be a lot
Wait,
better.
Seth, they had two of the
Yes.
best defenses in the country. The same
Right.
team.
yeah,
Right. But that second defense is on the field now. Rashawn
Yeah.
Benny, TJ Guy, Derek Moore, that was team 2. Right?
Yeah.
And here they are. And I mean, those guys could have played better, but also this was so predictable that I have an article in Hail of the Victors about the offense that Oklahoma ran against us, where you put 2 tight ends on the field and then you spread them out into 4 wide. And what that does when you do that to Michigan is it turns their outside linebackers, who are defensive ends, right? You're talking about TJ Guy, you're talking about
Let's pick up the defensive
Yeah.
discussion because
Okay.
Miz is texting me like, "Hey, we need a break." All right, so let's take a break.
Right.
We'll talk defense on the other side here of the Michigan Insider of Big 1050 WTK online at thebig1050.com.
Clear on radio.
Yeah, it's so bad for Alex. Alex, they say he
Alex
took
Orji. Yeah.
the off the bone.
Ooh.
Yikes.
Ugh. That's not out for season. That's like
Yeah.
that's rehab.
yeah.
Mhm.
So Brian, do you believe that this offensive line really can be competent? I mean, you seem to be not really concerned, or not as concerned as I am, at least, but about the offensive line.
I mean, they made some mistakes, but physically they were there.
Okay.
Like even Crippen, like he got shoved back a couple of times,
Mm-hmm.
but it wasn't like he just got blown out. Like he had a couple of nice combo blocks. He moved some guys occasionally when he was on a double. Like, after watching it live, I was like, I mean, these guys are just getting pushed around, and it wasn't
Right.
the case.
Okay.
And
Mhm.
the extreme aggressiveness of the Oklahoma defense just makes blocking look terrible because
Okay.
you frequently get guys chasing other dudes to the ball, and there wasn't really anything they could do. Like you got the wing tight end block where there's a linebacker slanting under him, and nobody ever makes that block, especially when the opposing defense is just going hell for leather. Michigan didn't make that block. I mean, I don't necessarily think that reflects. I do think Zach Marshall was not ready for prime time.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like Klein
Tough loss. Huge.
Klein would have been a big difference, I think. So
On one play. Like
well, I'm not
you
even
saw him-
talking about
yeah.
the throw. I was just talking about his blocking. Like he consistently got his ass kicked. Like
Mhm.
just that was the one guy who I was like, he's not up for that. Like Sprague had a couple of bad moments. He got tossed aside. He didn't hinge block. He's going to have a bad score because he has a couple of real big negatives. But Norton was okay. Crippen was okay. El Hadi I thought was pretty solid until he got hurt. FB I thought was okay. Like Link was
Phoebe?
okay. God damn
Yeah.
it. Phoebe. Yeah, like they were okay against the defensive line that I think is going to be very good.
Yeah, that the Oklahoma defensive line I think is strong, and it did seem to me that just too many times there were more defenders to block than there were blockers.
I mean, it really did feel like those D'Antonio defenses where like wherever you go, there's a safety hitting you 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage.
Which would imply the problems were as much tactical as anything else.
I mean, I have a real, whenever I see cornerbacks 10 yards off the line of scrimmage and safeties closer to the line of scrimmage than cornerbacks, and you don't throw the relief, I lose my mind. You cannot let opposing defenses do that. You just can't. So,
I mean, this was our whole offseason with Chip, right? He's the guy and this was the first game with Chip too. Like he's the guy who fixes that. Who's like, okay, here's what you do so you can go back to running your stuff because people are going to overreact to you. And it was, I mean, that was supposed to be his job, right?
Well, I don't necessarily think that they came into this game expecting Oklahoma to do what they did so much. Like, it just didn't feel like they had prepared for what Oklahoma presented them. And it's possible, like, probably have to ask Alex about this. It's possible that this game plan was not a typical Oklahoma game plan, and it was just like, freshman quarterback, let's go.
I scouted Oklahoma as hard as anybody. I did the feature on them for Hail the Victors. I did a podcast with their guys, and I watched all their games from last year. And this is what he does. He's got two speeds, right? He's got Don Brown. He actually calls his Don Brown defense Brown, by the way. I think he probably named it after him. And the other thing he's got is the D'Antonio thing. Like, that's what he does. And he's been doing this for, did this at Clemson. And what did he get beat by? When you could, basically you have to CJ Stroud him, right? That's the kind of teams that he would struggle with. When you just had a lot of talented receiver, a lot of talent to block guys, and you could hit downfield receivers and have your guys win one-on-one matchups. And I just think Michigan went into this game. I think it was a Sharon Moore call. I don't know this. I'm guessing. It was a Sharon Moore call to say, look, not in the face. I don't trust our pass protection. I don't trust our receivers. I don't trust Bryce Underwood to make the right calls. Let's get through this and see if our defense can steal it.
And like, at some level, I get that, but when you're down 2 touchdowns in the third quarter, that's got to go out the window,
All right, we're coming back on radio, guys. Stand by.
You and I agree.
Back on radio in 5, 4, 3.
And we are back. Michigan Insider on Big 1050 WTKA, online at the Big1050.com. Sam Webb, Mr. Matt the Miz Misler on the other side. Listen, folks, if you are in the market for a new vehicle, you should get on board with Brighton Ford. Go to BrightonFord.com. Call 1-800-NEW-FORD to make it out to the lot at 8240 West Grand River Avenue in Brighton, Michigan. That's where John Cuter and his crew will take great care of you. And Brighton Ford is your go-to destination for a new Ford. Step into the driver's seat of your dream car or truck. Take it for a spin. Feel the power and drive it home today. At Brighton Ford, you'll experience the difference. Got a current Ford lease? Transfer it to Brighton Ford. They'll pick up your lease and deliver your new one right to your doorstep. It's that easy. No one provides service like Brighton Ford. Expect premium service during and after the sale. Brighton Ford, the official Ford sponsor of the Big 1050 WTKA. Call 1-800-NEW-FORD. Get on board with Brighton Ford. All right, so we were talking offense before the break. Now we need to roll over to the other side and talk about what adjustments we expect over on that side. So what did you see defensively?
So I'm a little worried that Wink kind of regressed, and we talked about this on the podcast, and I was like, yeah, maybe not as much, but this was. You could really see the difference last year in their third downs, in third and long, right? Or at least in like second and long too, any passing downs. And what they did last year after they had the player meeting and from Indiana on is they just simplified things. Now, the reason they could do that is because the simplification was, let's just go let Mason Graham cook, right? You don't have that button to push this year. So it's a little more understandable that his button was blitz. When things were going bad for them, he blitzed more in this game. He blitzed 4.58 guys per play. That mostly worked. Sometimes they didn't get Mateer down. They got a guy to Mateer, and then he would break loose and then make an insane throw. And you got tip your hat. I'm fine with that response. The problem I had is he's got too many guys doing too many different things. So when you put 2 tight ends on the field, Michigan wants to put out their 5-2. Right? They want to go old school. And that has 2 defensive ends on the edges. Then if you spread them out, if you go to a spread formation with 2, like 4 wideouts, right? But they're tight ends, those tight ends are still wide receivers. And that's what they had. That's what Oklahoma had. These guys are not great blockers on their own. And I think they scored like a 40-something and a 30-something on PFF. Not that those grades are, gospel, but these guys are not good blockers. And this was in Alex's scouting as well, but they're good receivers. They're fast, and you were putting defensive ends against those guys. And at one point, Dominic Nichols is a smart player. He's going to be a great player here, but he's right now a true sophomore, and they have him having to play linebacker, and then they can move things around and make him have to be the guy. Or they have Cole Sullivan having to shift out to nickel. And this is, I wrote a whole feature on this because I was like, this is the way that they're beating these Fangio and Wink Martindale defenses in the NFL now. They're putting multiple tight ends on the field and they spread them out. And those tight ends are more receivers than tight ends, and your defensive ends are still defensive ends. And it's just a mismatch. And he got got by this a whole bunch of times. Every time you saw them go 4 wide and just, Mateer takes a step, and then if they're blitzing, then he can throw it out to a guy, and they're in all this space. And you have to play them that way because you have defensive ends out there, and you have true sophomores trying to play out of position, right? I don't mind a true sophomore playing his position, but he's got to learn every single little nuance about playing linebacker. And then you got TJ Guy kind of blowing linebacker things too, because they're making TJ Guy play basically a nickelback when you do this. And I think it's just too much. I think last year it was too much. This year it's too much. This year you don't have the punch the Mason Graham button, but you can still call some blitzes. And I think that was maybe the answer, and I think that worked okay. It's just, this is the problem with our defense. This is the way you beat the style of defense that Michigan plays. And the way you can handle it in college is just match up. And I think this is Wink's blind spot, is he still hasn't really gotten the feel for the fact that college players are not that good at football. Some of them are, but a lot of them are just, that tight end, he's not going to be a blocker. You want to put a nickel against him, you'll be fine. Leave TJ Metcalf in there. If he gets blocked by him, okay, you got beat one time. But I don't think that's that concerning as asking a sophomore to play out of position. And that's my issue from this game.
I guess for me, if your best players make plays when they're in position to make plays, then, the plays that you're talking about, while certainly I think that the matchup issues that you bring up, hey, tactically, maybe Venables got him on some of those, Arbuckle got him on some of those. But there were a number of times where his guys were in position to have gotten Arbuckle, and his guys didn't make those plays.
Well, yeah, their first third down, their first third and long, their first drive, their first third and long, they throw verts against cover 2. Anyone who's played Madden has thrown verts against cover 2, right? Everyone knows that play. And the way you defend it is there's a couple, one, you have a little bit of time to get to the quarterback when they do that. And TJ Guy is single blocked, and Rayshon Benny is single blocked. And the way that Michigan has defended that since 2021, pretty much, has been you can't single block 2 guys on our Michigan's defensive line. You might be able to get away with one of them, but you want to single block Rayshon Benny, Ohio State, on 4th down, you're going to get Teshugba in your face. He's going to run him over because that's what Benny does. And TJ Guy, I've seen him trash guys who are now Ariante Ursary had a terrible game against TJ Guy last year, and now he was a second rounder, went and doing fine in the NFL now. So I've seen these guys perform much better, but that's how you defend it. Now the other way you can defend it is Cole Sullivan drops, gets a chip, and defends his quarterback, and you have Ernest Hausman drop further. Okay, that's another way you can defend it. It's not like there's just one way. The way Michigan's had success for so long is those guys have to win their one-on-one matchups. When you get those opportunities, you have to win those, and they didn't. And that was just, I don't know if that's going to continue or not. But I don't expect Rayshon Benny to lose one-on-one matchups to a guard who was injured last week.
To me, the game still is blocking and tackling, and Michigan didn't tackle in this game. I don't care what John Mateer can leg press. When he's standing there and gets hammered by a safety, or should have been hammered by a safety in the backfield, that's a 7-point loss for Michigan. That cost them 7 points.
That was after a drop interception. The play after a drop interception.
Right. And so, the game is still blocking, tackling, catching, throwing, and we just didn't do it. And I'm not denying the tactical.
The flip side of this is a team that scored 24 points and running the quarterback 19 times, right? Like they got sometimes, and you're going to get got by John Mateer sometimes. That's
Yeah.
just the way he is. Like, he's going to escape the pocket. He's going to hit guys downfield. You know, those two big plays downfield in the first third and long, like, he almost missed that guy. He almost missed the other guy. There's a way that this game goes that's not as like, what's going on with our defense? And I understand, like, you know, there's the Okie snap where the running back just runs in the flat and no one goes with them, and you're like, what are we doing? So I understand that there's frustrations there.
That was another bust, by the way.
I mean, obviously.
I senior, like, you know.
I know, but so we're getting, and we're running out of time, I know, but we're getting busts from guys who don't normally bust. We're getting missed tackles from guys who should be good tacklers. Part of that's Mateer, tip your hat.
Right.
Part of it too, I think, is just there's a lot on them, and I think that this is not like a fire wink thing. I'm not where I was. I nowhere near where I was last year after the Texas game. This is listen. You learned the lesson last year. Same lesson. You don't have the Mason Graham button to push right now, but you can take things off the plate of these guys. And I think that that's just a reality that you have to sometimes learn at the beginning of the season, right? You know, TJ Metcalf blew something that I didn't think TJ Metcalf would blow. He did. And maybe there's too much on him. Maybe, you know, maybe this is just the second game of the season and it's Oklahoma and they're loud in Norman and it was a tough situation. I don't know yet. It's game 2.
Yeah. They just got to improve faster than they did last year. Hopefully this will be that improvement game, and we'll see their arrow point way up after this game. Time will tell, right? That'll do it for us here today. Another spirited session. Appreciate you guys as always. We'll talk to you all tomorrow, and the Roundtable crew will talk to you next week.
Hey,
Here on
Sam,
Yes.
before we get out, how about we be a little gracious for some people and maybe join us over at
Inside the Bud Light Victor Sounds, caller number 7 to 734-998-1050. You'll join us on the corner of, I lose track of where we are.
Snyder and States, Snyder and Maine. Snyder and Maine.
Remain in Snyder. That is right. You'll just go to Remain in Snyder for caller number 7, 734-998-1050. We'll see you tomorrow here on the Michigan Insider on the Big 1050 WTKA, online at thebig1050.com.